Welcome back to the Campaign Couch. This is our polling day special, and Dennis Atkins channeling Bob Katter. Just how badly will this end for Labor?
Yeah, I'm not going to break dance on my head, but I did borrow Tom from Sky. I borrowed his hat for this last time here on the couch before the voting comes down later today. It is going to end very badly for Labor. I think that this election was determined many months ago. It was just a question of how bad it was going to be, and the real question was whether or not Labor could prevent Campbell Newman from winning the seat of Ashgrove, and if they did, they would then turn it into a pin the tail on the donkey sort of leadership question. They've failed on both counts. They've managed to make the result of the general election worse, and in Ashgrove they've failed.
In many ways, this was the election. This was the result that polls are predicting that was happening a couple of years ago. This 60-40 two-party preferred split. I think people made their minds up a long time ago to get rid of this government. And while there's been a bit of noise in between around Campbell Newman, and that has given Labor something to talk about, in the end they've just reverted back to the decision that they'd probably made a couple of years ago.
Should we expect any surprises?
Well, there's going to be definitely probably some Labor seats that will fall into the LNP's hands that the Conservatives have never held in Queensland. You look at a seat, say, like Mackay, it's very, very safe Labor territory, and that's one that LNP insiders have been talking about potentially getting their hands on.
Yes, and I think there will be a number of other very safe Labor seats. There are, how many seats are there that are open contests? There's 9, I think,
yes,
where there's retiring members. I think all of those are seriously in play, including seats like Rockhampton, Sandgate, Nudgee, Logan. These are very, very safe Labor seats, and I think because they haven't got a sitting member there anymore, because the sitting member not only left, but left late in the term, there's nothing for the Labor vote to hang on to. The Labor vote has got no grip in those seats, and from what I hear, the Labor vote is just falling away.
But also there's a reverse side of that, in that there is a lot of MPs who have been around for a long time, that the Labor vote is actually holding on to something because of those local MPs. We've seen it all throughout the campaign where the LNP has been saying, look at the Labor MP, they've dropped their brand, they're talking about how they're a local, and Labor have tried to use that to their advantage. So there are, while I think there's 9 or 10 retiring MPs where the seats are safe but in a lot of trouble because they retired, there's also a lot of Labor MPs who are there who are probably holding on much more than what they should have because of their own personal kind of appeal in the area.
Should Bligh and the Labor Party go down in flames, who will be the next leader?
Well, it's difficult to say. I guess we'll by the end of tonight we'll know who's left. I know the bookies are picking Anastasia Palaszczuk, but it will depend if someone like Cameron Dick or Andrew Fraser manage to win, which is highly doubtful for both of them. So you'll have to have a look at what the factional allegiances are and how many people are left before you can decide.
Yeah, this has happened to Labor twice before. It happened in 1957 and it happened in 1974. In 1957 there was a by-election soon after the election, and a guy named John Duggan was elected to the Parliament and became the leader of the Labor Party. He was a man of substance and strong leadership qualities. In 1974 they had Tom Burns there to lead them, another man of substance and strong leadership qualities. There is no John Duggan, there's no Tom Burns in the people who are likely to survive tomorrow, with the exception of Anna Bligh, but I don't think she's going to come back to the leadership. The other thing to remember about John Duggan and Tom Burns, it took both of them 15 years before they got the Labor vote back into a competitive position. And I think we'll see that again. I think this is going to be one of the longest, coldest winters that Labor has seen in Queensland.
Starting with Anna Bligh's concession speech, will there be tears?
I don't think so. I think Anna Bligh's a pretty tough character, and I think she's seen this coming probably for a couple of years now. While she probably expected the result would have potentially been better than what it's going to be, she's proved, I think, during this campaign that she's a fighter, that she was never gonna just lay down and let Campbell Newman kind of win, and she just doesn't have it in her to do that, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, the other side of this election, of course, we talk a lot about Labor, but we are going to see tomorrow a government with probably the biggest majority in the history of the state. And we're going to see a leader come in from outside of the Parliament and take over as Premier, having never for one day sat inside the Parliament. It's making history. It will be really interesting to see how much this campaign has steeled and matured Campbell Newman. Will he take the lessons of this campaign and make himself a better and stronger leader? That's the test he's got in front of him.
All right, folks. Well, we're there. We're hitting the polls, and just before we wrap up this episode of the Campaign Couch, final words?
Look, I think Labor really had a campaign that they would rather forget. They did okay in the middle period. They had Kevin Rudd at the start of it, but they really ran out of any cogent message which they could tell people which was a reason to vote for them. This idea of going after Campbell Newman solely on his integrity and not having their own alternative plan, I think's cost them dearly. People don't like that kind of politics. People wanted to hear the alternatives, even if they've already made up their mind against Labor.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, the steely resolve of the LNP, they almost blinked in the middle of this campaign when the full frontal assault was coming on Campbell Newman. They didn't blink. They responded to it quite forcefully. I think the steely resolve of the campaign that the LNP has run could put them in good stead to form a strong and effective government. And I think that's what Queenslanders want. They want a complete change from the last 13 years. Campbell Newman's got the opportunity to do that, and it'll be interesting to see if he's up to the task.
Dennis Atkins, Steven Wardill, it's been an absolute pleasure sharing the Campaign Couch with both of you. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to vote.